What is up, fam? It's your boy Paul P. Henny, and this is the One Day at a Time podcast. That's right. And fam, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a rating wherever you get your podcast. And share, because you never know if somebody might find some value in what we are doing here. So today I am excited to have our guest who is a veteran in our United States Navy with over 26 years of experience. That's right, 26 years of experience, and he's currently serving as a Command Master Chief within our United States Navy, where he plays a pivotal role in guiding and mentoring sailors at all stages of their naval careers. Throughout his distinguished service, he has earned a strong reputation for his commitment to excellence, discipline, and integrity. Beyond his professional achievements, he is a devoted family man, a husband to his wife Kimberly, a father to their son Jordan. His family remains the cornerstone of his resilience and drive. And fam, you know I love that. Passionate about leadership, he has made it his mission. That's right, his mission to inspire and cultivate the next generation of leaders, both within the Navy and beyond. His work reflects a deep belief in empowering others to reach their fullest potential, creating teams built on trust, purpose, and a shared vision. Fam, welcome to today's podcast, Command Master Chief Damon Maxile. Damon, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Hey, thanks, Paul. Thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Hey, sir. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your service to the country, and I think our connection is my brother. And absolutely. I know my older brother, who I look up to, if he speaks well of you, if that's automatic trust with me. So I appreciate you, sir. And I really appreciate you taking the time to spend a few minutes with me here today.
Absolutely. Yeah, your brother and I, we served together in Houston. So, he's a good man. I had a lot of great talks with him, and I knew he was going to end up where he's at right now. So as a commanding officer, great man, and I'm glad I got the relationship with him that I did.
Absolutely. Well, look, let's 26 years in the Navy. So tell me about like what type of role do you have now? So you're a Commander Master Chief. Okay, so what is your current role like? What does that entail?
So as the Command Master Chief, I'm an advisor to my commanding officer. As your brother is a commanding officer, he has a Command Master Chief, and our job really is to advocate for the enlisted sailors, be their voice, make sure that their messages and their concerns are being heard throughout the ranks, and just kind of be that middleman or woman to the commanding officer, and just advise them on decisions that they make for the command, give them a different outlook, because even with me, with my CO, I have more years in the Navy than my CO. So, when you step into that Command Master Chief role, you're their right hand, you are their sounding board, and make sure that, you make sure that they look at all angles when making decisions, so that they're not just making decisions in a vacuum or feel like they're making decisions on their own. So, that's pretty much my role. And I tell you, man, I love it every day, being able to impact young sailors and being that sounding board for them, and just that person that they can go to about career experience and where they should go in their career. I love advising people and helping them out in that aspect.
I love it. I love that. And I had another question about your entry into the Navy, but before I even go there, you said something that really struck something within me. So you're 26 years, and you work with COs or commanding officers who have, some have less experience. Now, imagine at this point in your career, quite a few of them may have less experience, than you do when it comes to the amount of years that you served. What has been your approach to working well with someone in the reality you may have more experience. How have you approached that to present a cohesive unit to those that you're serving?
Well, for me, I've had the privilege of having great leaders and great mentors. And so, I knew what I didn't know, and I always wanted to watch them and how they carried themselves throughout their naval career. And so one thing that you learn as you get into leadership is that everybody has something to bring to the table. And so for me, my CEO is a very, very, very sharp man, very smart. And so, but people think differently. Officers, they come up through the ranks differently than enlisted. And so for me, I've seen a lot, I've done a lot. And so my relationship with him is he allows me to advise him, even though he outranks me. He trusts me. And I think that that's one of the biggest things in leadership that you can have is when you're being trusted by your boss to do your job, it allows you to do your job more effectively with the sound mind, and you don't have that pressure of like you're scared to make a mistake. And so, we have a great relationship, and even before I took this assignment, we stayed on the phone for, at least 2 hours, just talking about his philosophy, how he grew up, what his expectations were of me. And the crazy thing is, even though I'm his subordinate, I still have expectations of him. And in leadership, we gotta recognize that people still have expectations of us. It's not just us having expectations of them. So, we have to, make sure we steady the course and make sure we just communicate. Communication is the biggest key for us.
I love it. And so it sounds like there's good communication there, and also what I'm really getting from what you're saying is there is definitely a level of mutual respect between you and your commanding officer.
Absolutely.
And I figured that might be the case because even when I spoke with my brother about you, he told me that you are the type of person that he appreciates working with. And I said, wow, that's speaking highly of you. And I think, to hear what you said about him and to hear what he said about you, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, especially knowing that you all are serving the country and that you're serving. There's so many sailors and people who are, whether they're direct reports to you or in the reality that you all are just serving the country. And I don't know all the military lingo, even though I grew up in a military family, but I think you kind of get where I'm coming from. All right, so when I read your bio, you were born in Kaplan, Louisiana. What was life like growing up for you?
So for me, I was born in Kaplan, but my dad was in the Air Force. So I was born in Kaplan, but I spent most of my younger years in Alexandria, Louisiana, where my dad was stationed at. And so I spent a couple years there, and then we moved to Anchorage, Alaska. And so, we spent a couple years there as well. Yeah, so that was a big difference. And then probably right around when I got to the 6th grade, we moved to Florida, to Panama City, Florida. And I think that's where I was a little bit older, so I kind of understood a little bit more. And that was on the back end of his career. So I spent about 4 or 5 years in Florida, and then he retired. We moved back to Louisiana, where I spent all my high school years. And then as soon as I graduated, man, 2 weeks later, I left for the Navy, and then been in the Navy ever since June of '99.
Wow. Yeah. So you moved from Louisiana to Alaska to Florida?
Yeah, man.
That's pretty different, especially going from Alaska to Florida. When you think about the climate, the climate and the weather.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So you grew up. But you grew up in an Air Force family. So what was it about the Navy that made you choose the Navy over the Air Force?
So I mean, for me, I've always been the type of person that kind of like stood on their own, so to speak. And my dad spent a lot of years in the Air Force, and I really, really respect my dad and what he did. But for me, I was young and I really wanted to travel the world. And so, I knew just based on those three assignments, Louisiana, Alaska, and Florida, um, you know, yeah, I love Florida. I like being there as a young kid, but the Navy just presented an opportunity to get to travel to places that I just wouldn't get to go to if I joined the Air Force. And so, I just wanted to do something different and kind of create my own legacy and not really follow after my dad. Even though I did join the military like he did, but I just wanted to do a different branch of service. And honestly, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did because I wouldn't be where I'm at today, had I not made that choice. But I also wouldn't be where I'm at today without, having my dad as an example of what life can be like and how, it set us up, for a long-term success and the things, the values he instilled in us, came from a military background. So that's how I ended up in the Navy, and I love every minute of it.
Yeah, that's always interesting to hear. Coming from our family. My both my grandfather served in the Army. Then my dad was working on Langley Air Force Base at the commissary. Okay. And then then you have actually two of my brothers are in the Navy. My older brother Tim, as the commanding officer, and then another one of our brothers, Daniel, is actually in the Navy Reserves. So okay. It's always interesting to see. Different family members choosing to go into the military in different branches at that, yeah. And to hear their reasoning for why, all the while I'm appreciative of everybody that's choosing to serve to serve our country in that manner. So growing up in Virginia, I was around so many people. I mean, half of our friends, it seemed like in our neighborhood, had parents, that were in the Navy. I had friends that I went to high school with who, joined the Army, the Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force. And I would see some of them, joining for 4 or 5 years, and they call it quits for whatever reason. For some, they may feel like they have another calling, another purpose, or something else that they're just passionate about that they want to pursue. And then we have guys like yourself. You've been serving for 26 years. So what has kept you? What has kept you in the Navy? Why? What is it about the United States Navy that has kept you for this amount of time?
Oh man, I would say in different parts of my career, it was different things that kind of kept me going. I think that my passion for leading, that definitely kept me going. I've had a few opportunities to do other things throughout my career, and but it always came back to me, deciding on what's going to put me in the best position to impact younger sailors, because early in my career I realized just how important leadership was. I have a great mentor, that's been my mentor for a long time, and I got to just watch him be a family man. I watched how he carried himself on the job, and that's I saw what I wanted my life in my career to kind of emulate. And so every day I wake up, I always tell my wife that, the day that I don't want to lead sailors is the day I'll retire. Because the one thing that I'll never do is I'll never just do it for the paycheck. Because in the end, only those sailors will suffer. If I'm just showing up to work, for my own personal gain, then in the end, the sailors suffer and then the organization suffers. So for 26 years, man, it hasn't felt like a job. It just felt like, this is what I'm born to do. I wake up every day with a passion to do it, and until I don't have that, I'll continue to do this great job.
Wow. And I can appreciate somebody like yourself being in a leadership position that has that perspective. As one working in a school, I can there are different things, but at the same time we're leading. I'm an administrator in a school, so I'm helping to lead staff, but I'm also helping to lead students. And something that I say and I have a deep conviction about is that I don't know how somebody works in a school without loving children.
Yep.
For me, I don't get it, because it's not about the paycheck. It's about those that we're serving. So to see that that's one, such a big factor in what's kept you all of this time, I can't do anything but respect and appreciate you for having that perspective, for having that mindset.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I can imagine over the years you've seen and experienced quite a bit, over the course of your service. So what have been some of the bigger challenges that you have faced throughout your career?
Oh man, I think that one of the biggest challenges that I faced is being able to, you got to be able to evolve. And I think that, sometimes we believe that, my way is the best way, and I realize as times changed, I was just having this conversation the other day that, as I get older, the generation of the sailors get younger, because they're still coming in at 17, 18 as I'm getting older. And so, I think one of the challenges has been, just being able to, relate to them at first, and then making sure that the message doesn't get lost. Because if you think about the times, 26 years ago when I joined the Navy, the way that leaders led, right, and the expectation and how they went about getting results was a little bit different. Now, it's a different way of approaching it, and you got to have patience, a lot more patience, and it's not just, hey, do this because I said do it. It's more of, I think more now than ever as leaders, we have to be able to lead by example. Like the younger generation today, they want to see that their leader is willing to do the things that you're asking them to do. And, long time ago, I believe that, hey, it was just, hey, do this. And people just did it and didn't really understand the why behind it. And, some people like that and some people don't, but for me, I encourage them to ask me questions. I encourage them, hey, if it's a decision that I'm making or something that you don't understand, I want you to come and ask me. Now, at that particular time, that may not be the right time for me to answer that question. However, I always want you to come back to me and get the understanding of why, I made said decision or whatnot, because I want them to truly have that understanding and it's a give and take relationship. And I think that allows you to be respected a little bit more.
Man, you have no idea. You have no idea how much I appreciate that answer, because the reality is, in your field, in my field, we work with people. We work with people, and there's so much to leading by example. And I have a question for you that's actually not. It's a bit off script from the questions that I prepared. How have you seen your role in the Navy versus your role in, with your family as a husband, as a father? How has one helped the other, or vice versa?
Oh man, I think that the main thing has been just being consistent. When I got to this command and even my previous command, when I first met everybody, one of the things I said was, when you see me at work, right, it's the same person you will see at home. And if you ask my son or you ask my wife about that, they'll tell you that I'm the same person that I am at work. And I try not to be different, because I think that anytime you try to be someone you're not, eventually you're going to get exposed. Eventually it's going to show up. And so for my family, I always try to lead by example for my son. We have lots of conversations and stuff, and we talk about, he's 21 now, going to be 22. And we talk about him being a young man and things of that nature. And we always have a good communication. And one thing in the family that we say, hey, that we stand on is, if there's a problem, we talk about it. Like we will talk about everything in the home, and so I don't believe that I'm any different at home than I am here. Matter of fact, I take a lot of the principles that we do at home, and I try to bring them to work. Like my wife, she started with this thing, years ago, where it's the win of the day, and it's on our refrigerator, and we have to share what our wins are. And so when I got to this command, I got a big whiteboard, put it down the hall, and I put on top, win of the day. And it's good to see the sailors walk by, and every day, I get to go read it, and they put their win of the day, because at the end of the day, every day is not going to be great. And we know that, and it's just about the consistency and just finding the small wins. And so I always say, at home, hey, we can't go to bed till you have a win, no matter how small that win is. And then the same thing at work, So I believe that it's just being consistent as a leader, whether it's being a husband, whether it's being a father, whether it's being a command master chief, just being consistent. I don't like to, say that, I'm Clark Kent at home and then Superman at work, or vice versa. I like to keep the same. I like to keep the same cape on no matter where I'm at. So, I think that for me it's just a matter of being consistent.
Yeah. You know what? I can appreciate that. And the reality is like, people can tell when you're being, when you're being inauthentic. Yeah. Eventually it'll come out, and that's why, like yourself, that I think it's just so good to strive to be consistent. At work, I'm Mr. Henderson. At home, I'm Paul or Daddy to my four sons. But at the end of the day, who I am at work is who I am at home, and vice versa. Who I am at home is who I am at work. It's that consistent, and it also helps to keep us from having to I forgot I'm at work now, or I forgot I'm at home now. No, if I'm being consistent, I don't have to worry about slipping up or anything along those, along those lines. So, absolutely. I can appreciate that. So obviously, as a husband and father, I'm sure that there are times that you had to lead your family, through, challenges, or even, a bit of adversity. I know in the military you get a little used to or accustomed. At the very least, the adversity of having to move your family from one location to another, and but at the same time, you grew up, doing that same thing within your family. When it comes to your career in the Navy, what has been your approach, or how do you approach handling adversity?
Oh man. So I think that, I always try to ask myself, before I respond to something, like, is it necessary? Like, is it necessary to really respond to this certain thing? And I always say, I truly believe that you gotta embrace the bad times. Like I've learned early, you really have to embrace the bad times. And the reason why is because you're going to see that story again. You're going to see that movie again. So I understand, like, I look at it in this way. I have to go through the tough times so that I'm not being hypocritical. That way, when someone else is going through that, then I can sit down with them and I can actually be able to coach them through that thing. And so I never want to be the type of leader that, is going to tell you about something or how you should approach something if I have not experienced that thing. So every time I go through something, adversity, or, I feel like something should be looked at as a negative situation, I look at it as, and I say to myself, hey, you got to go through this because you're going to see this again. Someone else is going to go through this, and they're going to look to you to give them some sort of advice or some sort of guidance on that. So I think that getting my mind to take that approach has definitely helped me. And, yes, I know that there's adversity, but, I try to look at adversity as it's just me saying to myself, you know what? Okay. All right. I know that I'm going to see this again. And I'm only going through this so that I can be able to help somebody else. And I think that has helped me with my leadership style. And that's where I believe that experience does matter, because I'm like, hey, when I've gone through a rough time, or I see somebody going through a rough time and they come to me and they're like, hey, Master Chief, hey, I'm going through this rough time. And sometimes it's not even about work. A lot of times it's about personal stuff. And so I use my personal journeys and I say, hey, okay, let's talk about it. And sometimes I share some of my stories with them, to give them context of, how they should approach things in that nature. So that's how I deal with adversity. I just look at it as it's meant for me to go through that thing because I got to be able to help someone else.
Wow. And to your point, any leader that I've had, any leader, whether it's a manager or supervisor or whatever that leader's role is at whatever position I'm in, that's something that I can always appreciate is when I'm able to share something that I'm going through, whether it's within a job or the reality is, it seems like what I'm really getting from this is you're very relational as a leader, and I've been able to gather that from a lot of what you shared. And for me, I've always found that comforting to know that I have a leader that cares, that sees me, that sees my situation, and they're able to, kind of put their arm around me and say, hey, you know what, I've been there, and this is how we're going to make it out. Even though my story might be a little bit different, my path might be a little bit different, the fact that I know that you've been there and the fact that you're showing that you care, right? That you're showing that you care, it gives me a reason to keep moving, right? It gives me a reason to keep going. And and I can appreciate that and embracing the bad times. I don't know that I've ever thought about it in those terms before, but I like that. Even today, part of the reason I'm able to talk with you a little bit earlier than what I normally would be is because we had a professional development. It's currently election day, right? The day that we're recording, and one thing our principal said as we met this morning, he made a reference back to his time in the classroom, and when, he spent 10 years in the classroom, and almost every time he says that, I think that it's a reminder to the teachers that, hey, I've been there.
Yeah.
I know what you're going through. It may not be the exact same experience. It may not be the exact same children, but I've been there, and I remember what it was like to be in your situation. And together we can continue to make it through, to serve those that we're serving.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about you being very, very relational, and what is it about, whether it's the Navy or beyond, what is it about leadership that has given you such a passion about being a leader or coaching leaders in the Navy and beyond?
Oh man, I think I really believe that leadership matters. I truly do. And if you look at any sport, you look at, even when it comes down to even friendship, right? If you think back when you was a kid, right, and let's say that there's 4 of you, or even 3 of you, right, and you're deciding on what are you going to do for the day? Like, what are we going to do? Somebody's going to always step up, and it's going to be the person you're going to follow. Somebody's going to make the decision, and that's the person you're going to follow. And so, it for me, it became a passion of mine because I believe that it truly, truly makes a difference. It really does. If you're doing it the right way, it really makes a difference, and you are able to impact lives, and you're able to change lives. And I get a joy out of seeing people succeed. Like, I really get a joy out of seeing them succeed. I cheer for them just as hard as I would cheer for myself. Especially when it came down to even just being in the Navy or making rank. And so my passion for leadership, man, I love it. I love to see leaders lead. I've had great leaders that I worked for, and it truly made a difference in my life, both personally and professionally. The leaders that I had in the Navy, they actually molded me of being the type of father I am, the type of husband I am. And so I just by those conversations and watching them as an example changed my life. And so I'm like, you know what? Like, I really want to be able to give back and do that same thing for someone else and be an example to them any way that I can. And so that really created my passion. Is just my love for seeing people succeed and understanding how to navigate through the military, because it's not for everyone. It's not so oftentimes it's not easy to do so. But you know, if you have an example and you listen to people who's been on the road, you're traveling, and you see someone who's done it the right way, you know, like they say, you know, don't reinvent the wheel. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, you look at the example before you, and hopefully you give them something to follow. And it's like I said, I'm no different at home than I am at the job. So with having a son, a young man, I spend less time talking to him and more time trying to demonstrate to him of how to be a young man and how to carry yourself. And so that's the best way that I believe that, especially now, the younger generation, that they learn is they want to see the example. They'd rather see the example than you sit down and just talking their head off, believe me. So I always try to take that approach and just lead by example.
Wow, man! I tell you what, I can really appreciate. I can really appreciate that, and so much of what I've heard you say throughout this entire time that we've had together is you genuinely care about the whole person.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not. It doesn't seem like it's just another a sailor that's reporting to you, or somebody that's within your command. It's like, no, it's obvious that you truly care about the person, and you know, the way I see it in my limited view, our United States Navy is better because of leaders like yourself that care about those who are serving, that care about those who are who are serving their country. Some so far away from home, and I can imagine, those who are fresh, whether it's fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, and choosing this career, but then spending time with a leader like yourself, that genuinely cares, because we don't get that everywhere. We certainly don't get that everywhere. So I can appreciate the way that you care about the whole person, and that you model as well. Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love it. So considering leadership and the way that you lead, who have you modeled your style of leadership after?
Oh man, I think that there's probably 3 people at 3 different times in my life who I've tried to model, my leadership style as. One, I would say Jimmy Swain has been one of them. I met Jimmy Swain early in my career, and not only was he a great leader on the job, but really what I took from Jimmy was how he was as a family man. Like how he lived, like his family, he was able to be successful on his job and be a great father and be a great husband. So when I got to, visit him at his home, and I literally got to see him with his family, I knew that that's the type of father that I wanted to be. And I knew that's the type of husband that I would want to be. And then later on, I ran into, I got to work with Manny Ortiz. He was a great leader for me. He taught me how to stay hungry, and how to be able to push people out of their comfort zone, but not do it in a way where you feel like you're disrespecting them, or in a way that they feel like you don't care about them. He taught me how to have that balance of showing like, hey, you have to be able to push people out of their comfort zone, and you can do it in a way where you're still showing that you genuinely care about them. And then, I ran into Fred Rogers. And Fred Rogers, actually, me and Tim actually served with Fred at the same command down in Houston. And so,
okay,
Fred Rogers was a great mentor to me. He still is. He still is a great mentor to me. He's a great husband. He's a great father, and his leadership style was totally different. You know, Fred, he's very professional. The way he wore his uniform, you know, just overall in his way of when you were struggling, he had a way with words, and he knew how to bring you back. He knew how to bring you back, and it wasn't yelling, it wasn't you know, demeaning you in any type of way. And so I emulated a lot of my leadership style as from Fred, and I also had, you know, in my most recent years, I had Mike Drake. Mike Drake is a professional. Same, him and Fred Rogers almost emulate each other. Wear their uniforms a certain way, and I got a lot of respect for all four of those guys. They definitely impacted me in a way that you know, I'll forever be indebted to them and grateful for them, for crossing paths with them.
Awesome. And what's amazing is the things that I've heard you say that you've gotten from them, I see in you as you've been sharing your story with me. Literally every aspect of their leadership, I've been able to glean that from you as we've been talking here today. So yeah, I love that. So, you know, as we get ready to you know, to wrap up here, what final advice would you give my audience as they take their next steps in their journey? And this is the One Day at a Time podcast, so you know, feel free to share whatever advice it is that has helped you, that you feel will also help my audience.
Oh man, the one piece of advice that I would share with everyone is, you know, find your passion, no matter what that is, and you know, don't shy away from it, and embrace it, and embrace those tough times, because no matter what, you don't have to have a title or anything like that in order to be a leader. Trust me, there's someone who is going to head down the road that you've traveled, and they're going to need you to be able to help them out of that situation. So anytime you're facing a tough time, instead of looking at it as a negative and saying, why me? I want you to look at that situation and say, hey, you know what? Hey, I'm going to take this on, because I know I'm going to utilize this situation to help someone else get out of a tough situation. And so just embrace it and enjoy life. And trust me, you'll see it. You'll see that movie again, and you'll be blessed for it. Trust me, you will be.
Awesome. Hey, and you know what, Damon? I'm also going to take that advice as well. I believe that's something that will continue to help me as I'm also on my own journey, you know, as a leader, and even in this still fairly new field, you know, as a podcaster. So tell us this: where can we find you?
Yeah, you can actually find me on social media. I'm actually I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Max Leadership. I'm just, you know, getting into this, you know, trying to branch out and be able to share my story and share different leadership and becoming a leadership coach for those that, you know, need some leadership tips, or, you know, just a sounding board, or someone that they need, you know, to speak to in any situation that, you know, if you're struggling as a leader, or just to share ideas. So you can reach me at Max Leadership on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay. You all find it here, and we'll be sure to put your information in the show notes for easy access for our listeners. So, hey, fam, I want to thank Damon so much for spending time with us today. I love what he talked about. He talked about evolving as a leader. He talked about leading by example. He even shared some of the stories of the leaders that have impacted his life. And I want to encourage you to think back on those times. Think back on those who have influenced you. What have you learned from them, and how can that help you on your path? So, Damon, thanks again. And fam, we are going to continue to learn together. We are going to continue to grow together, and we will continue to get better one day at a time. You got this.